Dear friend, welcome back to our devotional journey through Moses, the servant of God. In chapter 4, the tone shifts. We move from Moses' quiet growth to a bold, impulsive act that would change his life forever. The title is Deliverance by Main Force, and it captures the tension between our human impulse to act and God's divine call to wait. Let's step into this chapter together. The New Testament gives us this window into Moses' heart. And seeing one of them suffer wrong, he defended him, and avenged him that was oppressed and smote the Egyptian. For he supposed his brethren would have understood how that God by his hand would deliver them, but they understood not. Acts 7:24-25. It's a glimpse into his inner reasoning, his motivation. Moses believed he was ready. He thought the time had come. But this wasn't deliverance by faith. It was deliverance by force. Picture Moses in the palace of Pharaoh. Gold inlaid halls, silken robes. His every word obeyed. Egypt's wisdom poured into his mind. Egypt's gods carved into every wall. Egypt's pride at his feet. And yet he never forgot. He had knelt too often at his mother's side. He had heard too many stories by firelight of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. He knew he didn't belong to Egypt. And so one day, Moses left the palace and made his way into the slave quarter into Goshen. What he saw there stunned him. Men with bleeding hands, backs torn from the whip, children crying, women working in silence, eyes dull with exhaustion. The cries of the laborers echoed under the unforgiving Egyptian sun, and something inside Moses snapped. He couldn't stand by. One day, as he walked among the brick pits, he saw it happen. An Egyptian taskmaster was savagely beating a Hebrew slave. The Hebrew trembled beneath the blows, unable to resist, unable to flee. The whip cracked through the air like thunder. Moses looked left, then right, no one in sight. And in that moment, his heart burning with justice, he struck the Egyptian down. The man collapsed, lifeless. Moses dragged the body to the desert's edge and buried it in the sand. It was a bold act, almost noble, but it was done without divine leading. It was the first attempt at deliverance, powered by zeal, but not by God. There was still too much of Egypt in Moses, too much pride, too much confidence in himself. The raw material of greatness was there, but it still needed to be refined by fire. Next day, Moses returned. Perhaps he imagined continuing what he had begun. Perhaps he hoped to rally the Hebrews, but what he saw crushed him. 2 Hebrews were arguing, fighting. Moses tried to intervene. "Why do you strike your fellow Hebrew?" But one turned on him and spat out the words, "Who made you a prince and a judge over us? Do you intend to kill me as you killed the Egyptian?" The question pierced deeper than any sword. Moses was not the hero they expected. Not yet. He thought they would understand, but they didn't. He had acted prematurely. He had struck before God gave the signal. And now he was exposed. Word spread fast. The rumor reached Pharaoh's ears, and Pharaoh responded with fury. He sought to kill Moses, so Moses fled. He ran into the wilderness, across the harsh desert terrain, up the rugged slopes of the Sinai, leaving behind the power, the promise, the prestige. At last, he collapsed beside a well in the land of Midian. Dust on his clothes, shame in his heart, alone. But even here, the old fire had not died. At the well, Moses witnessed another injustice. A group of shepherds were bullying 7 young women daughters of a Midianite priest, driving them away from the well after they had drawn water. Moses rose and defended them. That single act of courage opened a door. The women rushed home, telling their father about the Egyptian who had helped them. Moses was invited in, fed, welcomed. Eventually, he married Zipporah Honi of the women he had defended. He became a shepherd. He lived in obscurity. And for 40 years, he would walk among silent hills and grazing flocks. Midian became his training ground. Gone were the gold and thrones of Egypt. Now his days were filled with solitude, sweat, and silence. God had taken him out of the palace, but now he would take Egypt out of Moses. Why didn't Moses stay in Egypt and face the wrath of Pharaoh? Because at that moment he was out of sync with God's will. The courage to stand only comes when you are standing with God. He had no promise to cling to, no command to obey. And real faith only operates when we are aligned with God's will. Later, scripture would say he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured, as seeing him who is invisible. Hebrews 11:27. But not here, not yet. Moses had not yet seen the invisible one. He was walking by sight, by anger, by ambition, and it had failed. Let's pause and reflect. Have you ever tried to force something before it's time? Maybe you felt strongly. Maybe it even felt right. But the door didn't open. The response wasn't what you hoped. The people didn't understand. And like Moses, you ran. Dear friend, don't despise the wilderness. God often hides us before he uses us. He humbles us so we can one day walk in his strength, not ours. You may feel like you've been set aside, but God is setting you apart. Has not finished, has forming. In time, Moses would become the meekest man on earth, a man who sought no glory, a man who spoke face to face with God. But first he had to unlearn strength. He had to learn to wait, to listen, to depend. Deliverance will come, not by main force, but by God's hand. Thank you for joining us for Chapter 4, Deliverance by Main Force. If this chapter spoke to your heart, I encourage you to share it with someone who needs to be reminded. Sometimes the wilderness is God's greatest gift. Subscribe to our channel. We're walking daily through the spiritual journey of Moses and beyond. We'll see you in Chapter 5.